Get back here now! This is unforgivable! Move!
There are things that happen behind closed doors that the world outside is never meant to see. And then there are people who stand close enough to the door to know exactly what is happening behind it, who have been standing there long enough to be certain, and who one morning decide that staying quiet is no longer something they're willing to do. This is the story of Lenora Holt, and the man at the gate who saw everything. The hallway of the Holt residence in Lincoln Park, Chicago, was 12 feet long and ended at a front door with a brass handle that Lenora polished every Sunday evening the way her mother had taught her. Not because it needed polishing, but because a clean threshold, her mother believed, was how you told the world that the people inside still had dignity. Every morning, Lenora stood at the hallway mirror and adjusted her sleeves. She wore long sleeves every day, regardless of season. In July, she wore light linen. In January, she wore merino wool. She had built an entire section of her wardrobe around this requirement, and she was precise about it. Nothing too thick, nothing that would make her colleagues at the firm ask questions about the heat, nothing that would draw the kind of attention that sleeves drawn carefully to the wrist were specifically designed to prevent. She would stand at the mirror for exactly 30 seconds. She would adjust the left sleeve first, then the right. She would check that nothing was visible below the cuff. Then she would pick up her bag, open the front door, and walk to the car. Samuel Briggs had been the gate man at the Holt residence for 11 years. He had watched Lenora come and go every day since she and Preston moved in. He had watched the marriage in a particular way that gate men watch marriages. From the outside, over years, through the accumulation of small observations that individually mean nothing and collectively mean everything. He had noticed the long sleeves 18 months ago. He had noticed, more specifically, the way she held her left arm close to her side when she walked the car on certain mornings. Not all mornings, but enough mornings, and consistently enough after certain kinds of nights. Nights when the lights on the upper floor stayed on past midnight, when there were sounds that a gate man standing 30 feet from the front door could hear the wind was right, that Samuel had stopped telling himself the pattern meant nothing. He had started writing things down 14 months ago in a small spiral notebook he kept in the left pocket of his uniform jacket. The date, the time, what he had observed, the sleeve, the arm, the particular angle of her posture on the mornings when it was worse than others. He had filled 31 pages. Lenora Whitfield had grown up in Atlanta, the daughter of a structural engineer father and a mother who had taught high school mathematics for 32 years and who had approached every problem, including the problems of raising a daughter in a world that would consistently underestimate her, with the patient precision of someone who understood that the right answer existed and that the only question was whether you were willing to do the work required to find it. Lenora had inherited both parents' dispositions. She had studied architecture at Georgia Tech, completed her master's degree at the Illinois Institute of Technology, and by 34 had risen to senior architect at one of Chicago's most respected commercial design firms. She was known among her colleagues for a quality that they described variously as composure or focus, or simply the particular seriousness of someone who does not waste words. None of them had asked about the sleeves. She was not certain whether this was kindness or something else. She had met Preston Holt at a fundraising dinner 6 years ago. He was a real estate developer, sharp and socially confident, the kind of man who knew how to make a room feel like it had been waiting for him. She had liked him initially, had fallen in love with him in the genuine way that happens before you understand the full structure of the person you are falling toward. The violence had started 22 months into the marriage, not immediately and not without warning, in the sense that there had been earlier versions of it. The controlled anger, the specific silences, the way he occupied a room so completely that she had learned to make herself smaller inside it. But the physical expression of it had arrived on a Wednesday morning in March, 2 years ago, and had not stopped since. She had told no one. She had not told her mother, because her mother was 67 and had high blood pressure, and Lenora had decided, in a methodical way she decided most things, that the information would do her mother more damage than it would do Lenora good. She had not told her colleagues. She had not told her friends, 2 of whom had called with increasing frequency over the past year, asking if she was all right, accepting her careful assurances that she was. She had, 3 weeks ago, called an attorney. She had met with the attorney for 2 hours on a Thursday afternoon in an office on Michigan Avenue, and she had laid out the situation with the same structured clarity she brought to a client brief. The attorney had listened without interrupting. At the end, she had asked Lenora what she needed. Lenora had said, "I needed to be airtight. I need him to have no room to move." The attorney had said, "Then we need documentation beyond your account alone." Lenora had thought about that on the drive home. She had not known at that point that the documentation already existed. She had not known that it had been sitting in the left pocket of a uniform jacket at her own house for 14 months. written in a small spiral notebook by a man who decided, quietly and entirely on his own, that what he was witnessing required a record. On a Tuesday morning in March, exactly 2 years to the week from the first time, Lenora stood at the hallway mirror and adjusted her sleeves for the last time in that house. She did it with the same precision she always did. Left sleeve first, then right. Check the cuff. Pick up the bag. She opened the door. She walked to the car. Samuel watched her from his post. He watched the arm held close to her side. He watched her get in the car without looking back at the house. Then he took the notebook from his pocket. He had already sealed it inside a manila envelope. The night before, addressed to the attorney whose car Lenora had left on the kitchen counter 3 weeks ago. A card he had not known she had seen, but which he had read, understood, and memorized before she came back to the kitchen to retrieve it. He had already called a courier. The envelope was delivered to the attorney's office by 10 that morning. Lenora was at her desk by 8:30, her sleeve adjusted, her drawings open. The Holt Building schematics spread across the wide surface of her drafting table. The Holt Building was a $280 million commercial development that Preston's company had commissioned and that Lenora's firm had won the contract for 2 years earlier, before the violence, or rather, precisely at the time it was beginning, so that Lenora had spent the past 2 years designing her husband's most significant building, while absorbing what he did every morning before he left to oversee its construction. She had thought about this often. She had found in the specific cruelty of the coincidence something that she did not have a word for, but that felt most mornings like the particular way of irony when it is too heavy to carry as anything other than fact. At 11:15, she stood at the bathroom mirror in the office restroom and looked at her own reflection for a long time. Then she said, quietly, to the woman in the mirror, "I adjusted my sleeves every morning so that the world outside that door would not have to carry what happened behind it. I am done carrying it alone." She went back to her desk. She called her attorney. The attorney told her the envelope had arrived. Preston left the office at 6:15 that evening, the way he always did, and drove home through Lincoln Park traffic with the particular satisfaction of a man who had reviewed the Holt Building financing that afternoon and been told everything was on schedule. He was thinking about the project timeline when he turned into the driveway and saw Samuel standing at the gate post rather than opening it remotely the way he usually did at this hour. He slowed the car. He rolled down the window. Samuel said, "Mr. Holt, there's something I need to say to you before you go inside." Preston looked at him in the way of a man for whom certain categories of people had long since ceased to fully register. He said, "What is it, Samuel?" Samuel said, "I have watched your wife leave this house every morning for 2 years. I have seen what she hides under those sleeves. I wrote it down every time. The date, the time, what I saw. I gave it to her attorney this morning. Every page of it." He said it in the voice of a man who has rehearsed nothing and means everything. Preston's expression went through several things in rapid succession before settling on something that was not quite anger and not quite fear, but occupied a specific territory between them where men who believe themselves unobservable realize, for the first time, that they have not been. He said, "You have no idea what you're talking about." Samuel said, "I have 31 pages that say otherwise." He opened the gate. The legal proceedings were filed the following morning. The documentation Samuel had provided, 31 pages of dated, time-stamped observations spanning 14 months, was incorporated into the evidentiary record alongside the medical documentation Lenora's attorney had already begun assembling. The case was, as Lenora had requested, airtight. Her attorney simultaneously filed notice of medical leave on her behalf with her firm, citing documented injury. The firm's project lead informed Preston's development company that the Holt Building project senior architect was unavailable pending a leave of indeterminate duration, and that project continuity was under review. The project's primary lender, receiving this notification, opened a review of the financing covenant that required the original design team's continuity for the first phase of construction. The review paused disbursement of the project's third tranche of financing, a sum of $62 million, pending resolution. Preston's attorneys contacted Lenora's attorneys within 48 hours. Lenora's attorneys responded with a single letter outlining the terms under which she might be available to discuss the project's continuity. The terms were not negotiable. Preston signed the related documents within 10 days. He called Lenora 4 times in the weeks that followed. She did not answer any of them. His mother called once, on a Sunday afternoon, with a tone that suggested she was performing an obligation rather than expressing a genuine concern. Lenora listened for 30 seconds, then said very calmly, "I hope you understand that I am not available for this conversation," and ended the call. She did not call back. For months after proceedings were filed, a colleague at the firm asked Lenora, gently, how she was doing. They were standing at the window of the 31st floor office, looking out over Chicago's skyline, the lake visible in the far distance, gray and wide and entirely itself. Lenora thought about the question for a real moment before answering it, the way she thought about questions that deserved actual answers rather than social approximations. She said, I spent 2 years making myself smaller so that one person's anger would have room to exist. I am learning now how much space I actually take up. It is more than I remembered. She looked at the lake for another moment. She said, it turns out I am very glad someone was paying attention when I had stopped paying attention to myself. Samuel Briggs sat his gate post on a Tuesday morning in October, in the same chair he had occupied for 11 years, at the entrance to property that now belonged to new owners, a family with 2 young children who waved at him from the backseat of their car every morning when he opened the gate. The Holt residence had sold quickly. Preston had relocated. The hallway mirror, Lenora had been told, had been removed by the new owners during renovation and replaced with built-in shelving. Samuel looked out at the quiet street. The sun was coming up over the roofline on the east side of the block, the same way it did every Tuesday, the same way it had for 11 years. He did not regret a single page of the 31 he had written. He did not regret the phone call to the courier. He did not regret the look on Preston Holt's face at the gate that Tuesday evening, because what that look had confirmed was something Samuel had already known and had simply needed the right moment to say out loud. He saw everything. If this story stayed with you, share with someone who needs to be reminded that silence is never the only option available to a witness. And tell me in the comments, who do you think was braver? Lenora for filing or Samuel for speaking? I will see you in the next story.